So Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is finally out and everyone is loving it. I mean, who would have thought people would be happy when Nintendo puts out something that isn't a half-baked sports game? It's damn crazy, you guys have cracked the code! Jokes aside, let me just say right out the gate that this game is good. Like, absolutely fantastic. It's Xenoblade for crying out loud. I got the privilege of picking this thing up on day 1, and I finished it 5 days later. Dude, I never beat games that fast. You know what took me longer? Stray. You know, the 5-hour-long cat game, and I love that game. But for me, there really isn't anything else out there that's nearly as gripping and enthralling as Xenoblade. When I start one of these adventures, the game grabs onto me and holds me hostage until I see the credits. Call it Stockholm Syndrome if you want, but that's just how it is. Now, there are a gazillion factors that play into my engagement with this franchise, but consistently one aspect that trumps them all every single time: the characters. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you already know how much reverence I hold for good character writing. It's what makes a story achieve that level of beautifully authentic relatability. And if you've played this game, you already know they knock it out of the park here. But if you haven't played this game, I suggest you give it a shot and then come back to this video in about 50 hours, because this analysis is gonna have spoilers galore. Cool? Cool. Alright, thanks. Love you. Bye. Alright, you mighty Mobin Power Rangers, let's talk about Catgirls. The cast of this game is easily its strongest quality. Obviously, there are different strokes for different folks, but I do genuinely believe that there's someone for everyone here. Whether it's the adorable, upbeat, yet insecure Senna, or the snarky, sarcastic, but thoughtful Uni, every character is lovable in their own memorable way. And what's even better are their oh-so-intriguing relationships with one another. Due to the major inclusion of Ouroboros, aka fusion dances, the writers have given themselves this great excuse to explore these pairings more closely. Senna and Lan's are gym buddies, Tyan and Uni's personalities clash in such a humorous way, and Noah and Mio. Dude, don't even get me started on them! Actually, I kinda have to, because they're kinda what this video is about. Despite whatever convoluted JRPG BS this game would throw at me, especially towards the end, I found the growth of Noah and Mio's relationship to be such a beautiful dynamic through and through. They take two extremely sympathizable characters and have them fall in love in a spontaneous way that fully sells a message of this narrative. After going back through the story and doing my usual note-taking for this wild ride, it's become so apparent to me as to how major their role in this adventure is. They more than fulfill their roles as the protagonists and drive home the core themes in such a fascinating and powerful way. First off, who the hell are they? Noah and Mio are of the same profession, Offseers, those who send off the departed via music. The world of Xenoblade 3 is a brutal one, in which humans are born with the sole purpose of fighting in the endless war between the nations of Kevis and Agnes. It just so happens that our two leads are on opposing sides. With a lifespan of a measly 10 years, not a second is wasted as their lives are consumed by non-stop training and fighting, most dying on the battlefield and not making it to the coveted homecoming. Our duo first meet on bad terms, you know, cause they're kinda mortal enemies and all that, but in the midst of their fighting, they find themselves both filled with an unusual, slight perturbation. Probably an imbalance in the force or something, I don't know. Van Damme's interference gives them a chance to speak their minds, and while the rest of the party goes for each other's throats, Mio is all ears when Noah talks and begins to realize how the two of them really aren't so different after all. Once Mobin time begins with our friend Mr. D here, Van Damme gives them their first opportunity to interlink, letting that initial empathy for one another grow to something far more. Seeing each other's memories and trauma gives the two this flood of emotions, whilst creating the foundation for the mutual appreciation and respect they're about to build. In these early hours of the game, I found the disparity between how the other four reacted to the opposing side compared to Noah and Mio so compelling. It was pretty captivating seeing these two enemies cautiously learning to trust one another based off of essentially a gut feeling. This Ouroboros thing they got going on may seem like a cheap writing trick, but I actually think the way it's used in this scenario is superb. There's a scene after the battle where they talk about how they saw and felt each other's grief, also acknowledging that they very well could have been the cause of it. What they witnessed were only fragments, but the understanding is still reciprocated. I love how the writers start them off on the right foot, but don't get rid of the heavy lifting as the relationship still has all the room it could want to evolve. With the mighty Mobers hunting them down, the group has no choice but to combine, letting the true journey begin and allowing their personalities to start to shine through. The two of them are promptly shown to be natural leaders, setting goals and managing any inevitable bickering within the gang, as well as sharing an immense curiosity and intrigue for the world. They're willing to take a chance and progress with optimism, which we'll soon realize to be a core theme of this story. But we'll dive into that later. For now, let's talk about talking. So many of their conversations deal with existentialism, as for the first time in their lives, they finally start asking questions about the world they've been forced to live in, and why it is that way. One of the biggest issues they start to take note of is, well, their lifespan. You see, Mio only has 3 months left, which adds this extra wrinkle to their dynamic because they subconsciously close off their hearts to avoid the inescapable break. But you already know he's gonna fall for the cute cat girl anyway, so I think it's time we get just a little bit mushy. The best relationships, in heck, literally any scenario, are those that are mutually beneficial. What I love about Noah and Mio is that, yeah, they're strong characters on their own, but any character can do that. What's far more impressive is how, in addition to that, they've been meticulously written to complement each other, and I think the best place to start is with their music. Despite sharing the same profession, their initial attitudes towards their job couldn't be more different. Mio used to despise this role she was forced into, feeling as if she wasn't contributing without being on the front lines. It was only thanks to her old partner, Miyabi, that she managed to find a tolerance for it. Noah, on the other hand, possesses great passion for his work, understanding the deep importance of his role and sending off everyone, friend or foe, even though his friends give him a ton of crap for it.
Nope, no way. You're not sending him on. You realize how messed up that is?
Huh? You think so?
How do you not? Think about the things this guy did.
He tried to kill us all and rob the soldiers of their remaining life.
Oh, I'll just do it anyway.
What Lons doesn't realize is how little empathy he contains compared to Noah, who sees a consistent similarity between all lives. And with every line Noah says, Mio feels his words echo Miyabi's. All these scenes with the two of them playing are a shining example of, say it with me, showing and not telling. Mio never says, oh yeah Noah, you're so smart, I agree with you. No, who wrote this, George Lucas? Her thoughts aren't spoken, but rather played. At first it was Noah taking the lead, but with each instance, Mio joins in sooner, until eventually they're in perfect sync. Like damn dude, nobody even needed to count them in. If that's not a strengthened bond, I don't know what is. Because of Noah, Mio now has a deeper respect for her musical ability, and the lives of people in general. She takes that newfound positivity going forward, and returns the favor. Throughout the first half of the game, we're shown time and time again how considerate Mio is. Sorta like how in FF7R, where Tifa is constantly checking in to make sure Cloud isn't losing his mind, cause God knows that guy needs it. Noah tends to drift off into thought, sometimes ignoring other party members or literally distancing himself. And every single time, we see Mio come to help him shoulder the burden. Whatever he might have to say, she's open ears. I mean, just look at them. While still reserved, it's evident that he appreciates having someone to ease the worries, avoid his isolated habits, and admires her for it. I love this shot where Mio's trying to cheer up Taion, and Noah's just staring at her in awe. It's adorable. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, which, keep in mind, is a good thing. A dynamic without conflict is not a well-written one, and fortunately, that's not the case here. Despite them growing closer, the fear of the end looms near, and everything begins to feel all too real. Mio feels herself losing touch with the world, and the ticking of the clock becomes louder with each passing second. With only 2 months left, her remaining time feels horrifically accelerated. Noah attempts to console her, but makes the mistake of saying the words, I get it, because how could he possibly? Luckily, Senna is the ultimate wing woman, telling Noah that even someone as great as Mio is bound to feel the pressure. All she needs is someone to listen and say it'll be alright, and he's that person. After sleeping on it, the next morning they proceed to make up and apologize for their rash behavior, and Mio gets her chance to vent. This time, she tells him the full story about Miyabi, and how her sacrifice still haunts her to this day, given that Miyabi was the younger one. This time, Mio trusts him to listen, and Noah lets her speak. They both learn from their mistakes and become better people because of it. As per Mio's request, they exchange flutes, symbolizing the newfound trust and acceptance they now have for one another. Xenoblade is so good at subtly using motifs and symbolism to show change, and this is no exception. Our next major landmark is Sword March, the land where Van Damme had told them the truth would be unveiled. Upon their arrival, they're greeted by humans unaffected by the war's life cycle, living normal, lengthy lives. This rightfully has the party dumbfounded, even more so once their eyes are open to the shackles that bind their lives to being mere tools for destruction, recycled again and again. They're faced with the ugly truth, but also the beauty of life. This scene at the maternity ward is one of the most wholesome in the game. They find out what babies are, and their reactions are just so sweet. Once Noah puts out his finger, our favorite pair share this gaze that frankly needs no words. Also, side note, we get maybe the best clip of the entire series.
Alright then, lads and lasses. Who wants to know how babies are made?
Now, the city acts as the midpoint of the story, meaning it's time for the writers to shift gears. As for Noah and Mio, seeing this wonderful community filled with so much love and family has them subliminally start to surrender to their feelings. Up until now, there were always these defenses put up to shield them from the inevitable heartache, but now the guards have been dropped, and it's almost like Mio's destiny has been disregarded altogether. This game has been pretty intelligent about displaying their growing romance, but there's this one extremely blatant example which I kinda love. After hearing the birds and the bees talk, the party steps outside to see a couple sharing a smooch on the bench. Then our duo instinctually look to their side before breaking the gaze out of embarrassment. It is cheesy as hell and like the most obvious foreshadowing in the world, but I can't help but love it. So it all seems fine and dandy right now, but I think it's about time I introduced N and M. In a game full of really underwhelming antagonists, these two stand out. Especially N. Like, my guy without a doubt has some major back problems from carrying the villain so hard. To clear things up, these two are an older generation of Noah and Mio, and they've survived all this time because my guy N was offered a deal with the devil. He could either not become a genocidal monster, or live in the endless now with Bae. Well, he chose the latter, so while our squad gives it their best shot in combat, they don't stand a chance against Reshiram. The gang wakes up incarcerated, however, with Mio in her own cell. Turns out this guy's kinda a sicko and plans to set up this great ceremony for Mio's homecoming, but snuff out her flame in the process, never letting her be reborn. I'll go into the genius behind the evil versions of our beloved heroes in a bit, but while we're here, you know I gotta talk about the jail sequence. I'm gonna sound crazy for saying this, but I love seeing characters get pushed to their limits. I promise it's not in any sort of sadistic way, it's more because of the unmistakable humanity that drenched these scenarios. The calm and composed Noah we've known throughout the entire campaign is now a shaking and uncontrollable mess at the thought of Mio being erased from the world for good. Because of that disparity, his struggle here hits you like a ton of bricks. With every punch to the gate, we so easily resonate with his pain, and in spite of his anguish, one voice continues to reach him. Mio's. On the eve of her homecoming, she gives Noah this heartbreaking speech about how she's feeling now that the end has come.
Now I want to live. To live and learn.
Okay, sorry, but I know you were thinking the same thing. Here, Mio admits to everything we've been studying about these two up until now. How she avoided even saying Noah's name due to the fear of attachment, as well as the acknowledgement of how Noah truly did enrich her life. So when she says,
If I were given the chance, if this road I've walked were to keep on going, I'd like to spend that time with my Noah.
how can you not cry, man? Xenoblade is incredible at doing these gorgeously bittersweet moments that just rip your heart in two, and this is no different. Mio's homecoming takes place the following day, and we witness Noah break all over again at the sight of her. Then at his lowest point, N tosses a flute in front of him, taunting him, knowing he doesn't have the emotional strength to send her off. Oh my gosh, dude. This guy sucks. Before he can even think about playing, the image of Mio fading away strips Noah of any composure he had mustered, as she permanently leaves the world in front of his eyes. Or so we thought. So, wouldn't it be crazy if this wasn't Mio at all? You know, like a totally different person? Well, that's exactly what's going on. Long story short, Mio and M switch bodies, so Mio could keep going in M's, and M would be permanently sent off in Mio's place. Now you're probably thinking this is the biggest cop-out in the world, and that's because it is, but I promise it works, so just please hear me out. The reason N made this proposition was because, well, she couldn't go on. So when we go back to the scene where she said, I'd like to spend that time with my Noah, we realize she's still speaking for Mio, but it's got this ingenious double meaning as well. The Noah she knew had become this shell of a man consumed by Mobius. She didn't know him anymore, her heart was broken, he had gone down a path she couldn't follow, and it was all because of Zed. The dynamic of these alter egos really gets you to second guess Noah and Mio as a whole, because if N would go to such lengths for the girl, who's to say Noah's any different? And I know right now N seems like an inhumane psychopath that we shouldn't at all feel bad for, but the game makes sure to fix that. We're shown what are implied to be a few different generations of Noah and Mio, with each departure being more insufferable than the last. Over and over, we see Noah lose Mio and shatter into more pieces every time. So when we finally catch up to N, the decision to put an end to the agony no matter the cost makes that much more sense. What I absolutely love is how everything circles back around at the beginning of chapter 6 here. Once N realizes it was M that had been sent off, he loses it, and it mirrors Noah's anguish impeccably. Now the writers have solidified this almost indistinguishable indistinguishable similarity, and invoke this fear in the player that Noah might end up the same, which even he acknowledges, claiming that at the time, the Endless Now seemed like the most appealing thing in the world.
I wanted time to stand still. More than anything. I felt completely powerless. I wished time would stop. If the moment could have lasted forever, I wished for the unthinkable. Just like N. I proved to be just like him.
So now the game is left to answer this question of how are our versions of Noah and Mio different? Is there any way at all to break the cycle of misery? And that's answered through the main theme of the game. Hope. Because Noah and Mio have been given this second chance in a unique scenario with so many comrades shaping their identities, they're allowed to see the world and their lives with this increased optimism. Xenoblade as a whole has always been about looking past, well, the past, and making the most of your future, seizing your destiny if you will. The threequel continues that trend by literally showing you this relationship followed our message, this one didn't. N made the impossible choice and lost everything. He's forever chained by his past, leaving his life in this depressingly stagnant state. And since we're JRPG protagonists, you know we gotta fix that. In our last standoff against N, Noah tells him straight that he, much like Mobius, has embodied regret itself, hung up obsessively on every mistake along the way. Although he was living in the Endless Now, he was never living in the moment. Choosing the future, or at the very least, the present, never once crossed his mind. But M, she managed to cling onto the smallest bit of faith, enough to trust Mio and Noah to bring the world and N back to peace. It's thanks to finally opening his eyes to the present that N can hear M's intentions through Mio. Because what's so great about just existing together if you lose who you are along the way? I'm just now realizing that's basically the plot of High School Musical 2, but yeah, we're gonna move on. So N takes Noah's hand and agrees to walk forwards. The existence of N and M in this game quite literally give an extra dimension to an already extremely clever dynamic. The doppelgangers sell us players on the message of being ready and willing to change, despite it being rightfully petrifying most of the time. The right to choose is a valuable one, and our party has achieved that hopeful freedom with the elimination of Mobius. And at the end of it all, is gratitude. There is this oh so wholesome moment in the final cutscene, which is just beautifully honest thankfulness.
Thank you for sticking with me. Without you by my side, I'd never have made it here.
Oh, come on, you had to say that?
I'm serious here.
I know you are.
Huh?
Listen, Noah, I feel just the same. Without you, I think my wishes would never have come true.
I see. I guess so.
So I'll say it too. Thank you, Noah. Truly.
And then, oh my gosh, dude, not this song. This last scene downright broke me. The worlds are no longer bound, meaning Kevis and Agnes would be split. So we go through our party members saying their poignant goodbyes. Senna and Lons promise to keep working out every day thinking of each other. Uni calls Tyan her best bud for the first time. And of course, we bring it all together with the stars of the show.
Even if we're worlds apart, I swear I won't.
I won't let go. Not ever. I'll always be with you. Our feelings forever interlinked.
Wherever we are.
Yeah. Wherever we are.
Yes, bro! Game of the year! Shulk, take notes, my guy. None of this water BS. What are you, a bird? This is the real deal, man, and it just feels so earned after all the strife they've had to overcome to get here. They've both come out of this as far stronger people, confident and trusting that the future will bring them back together one day. Because why think of the worst case scenario when you can enjoy the moment, keep walking forwards, and hope for the best? Unlike N, they've learned to free themselves from the shackles of fear for happier and healthier lives. But I would be lying if I said it didn't completely break my heart seeing them sprint towards each other as the worlds begin to drift. Monolith, you can't keep doing this to me, man! Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was a game where I felt a bit mixed on a few fronts, but this relationship was one portion that was just so well executed and kept me engrossed throughout the full runtime. Covering my full thoughts on this behemoth of a game is a bit daunting at the moment, but I'm glad I could share my favorite part of it with you all. Character writing will always be something I find great joy in dissecting, and hopefully my analyses of these characters are at least a little bit entertaining to watch. If you did enjoy this video and want to know when the next one's coming, make sure to follow me on Twitter at GiantPokeSpyro. I post consistent updates over there on the progress of upcoming videos, so if that sounds good to you, you know the drill. Link is always in the description. If you're somehow still watching by now, first off, you're a legend, and second off, thank you. It really does warm my heart. I wish you the best, and as always, I hope you have a fantastic day.
I see you smiling there, so peaceful.